It is I, Deimos, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all having a wonderful day, and in today's video we're going to be going over a bit of a broad topic, and that's how to improve at Apex Legends. So as with everything, the best way to improve is simply just to play more and be more thoughtful as you play. However, this is very vague advice, and while it is true, I'm going to try and go more in depth and explain how to actually achieve this. Also, quick plug, I'm live over on Twitch every day from 6:30 p.m. EST to 9:30 p.m. EST, and it'd be great to see all of you over there. All my links can be found below. So my number one tip is to simply be, ask yourself, what could I have done better or differently? Every pro team or top player knows this is the most important key to improving in any game. Pro teams go back and rewatch scrim VODs and see what they could have done differently or done better, and if you can record, I highly recommend recording yourself and going back and watching to get a perfect snapshot of what situation you played wrong. Sometimes, especially in a BR, it's really easy to write off certain events as not your fault or there's nothing I could have done. However, most of the time this is not the case. Let's say you die off the drop because you couldn't find a weapon, but the enemy did. Most of the time this is still technically your own fault. You more than likely knew a team was going to be there and you didn't prepare for it, or you and your team failed to be aware of your surroundings and teams potentially dropped to that same location as you, which leads me to my next tip. Free looking is so easy and so underused by most of the player base. Knowing if you're alone at a drop spot can mean the difference between winning and losing. A Jetmaster shouldn't be the one looking since they're already controlling the drop, but the two teammates who aren't doing anything that are connected should both be looking around to ensure if a team is following you that everyone is aware of that. Try your best to remember where the drop ship traveled, and the drop path can tell you so much information. The most concentrated area of players in the map will be along this drop ship path, so if you're in ranked and you want to be prepared for fights, or if you're chasing them down for a 20 bomb, remember that the drop path can mean success in both these situations. This next tip is always be aware, and it sounds so simple, yet you'd be amazed how many players lack basic awareness. Not only should you always be aware of your surroundings in the game, whether that be free looking during a drop or just paying attention to the new location you just entered, you should also be aware of what's in your backpack, the loot on the ground, your teammate's position, where the circle is in relation to you and your team. You should always be paying attention to these things in game, since a lack of understanding of what you're carrying can mean running out of vital supplies, or not paying attention to your team. You can be pushed up in the head of your team and lacking backup. Nobody wants to back down from a fight, but there's nothing wrong with it, especially if it means surviving. Knowing when to back up, especially in ranked, is so important, since the longer you live, the greater the multiplier on your ranked points. If you're in a fight that you're obviously losing, there's nothing wrong with trying to back out of it and live to fight another day. Some people get so tunnel visioned with the fight that they don't even realize the fight is over. Don't ever overextend over a downed or low guy when the rest of the enemy team is still at full health or being really aggro from a good position. If you're failing to get cracks or knocks when you and your team are consistently having to heal, this is a really good sign to back up while you still can. So we all know high ground is usually the best position to be in, and if you're in this good position, don't give it away unless it's absolutely worth it. Finishing a downed guy or chasing someone who's low is not a good reason and will usually result in you losing that hard gained position. This game is just as much about positioning as everything else. Don't give away good high ground or good cover for something that isn't going to be worth it in the end. Practice dodging bullets, and I know this sounds a lot harder than it actually is, but it will come with experience, and learning how to strafe, counter strafe, crouch spam, or even just sliding and jumping can do wonders for your survival time. There is nothing easier to hit in this game than someone who's standing still or moving in a straight line. Spice up your movement. If you're in a head-up gunfight, don't just stand there. Strafe to the opposite direction of the enemy, crouch spam, jump. The more you move, the harder you're going to be to hit. Now, with that said, you're going to need to be able to actually still hit them, so make sure you're practicing this one, but the sooner you adopt some movement into your gunfights, you'll start living a lot longer. This next tip is super important, and again, especially if it's in ranked, somebody really needs to take charge and step into the leadership shoes, but for this tip you all need to have a plan. Everyone should know what the heck is going on and how you're going to be playing the game. Are you all high ranks and starting on the new season, meaning you're probably going to be taking more gunfights, or are you someone who's really had to grind for your position in your rank and you want to play more passively, so you're going to be spending more time trying to survive? These are extremely important because if one or two of you think you're playing for survival and the other one thinks you're pushing fights, then you have a recipe for disaster. One or two teammates are going to be pushed up significantly further, and this is going to end up resulting in lost points. Unless you're a top pro, you can only 1v3 so many times before you finally get beat. You all need to be on the same page when you're going into a game or going into a situation. Play a legend that fits you, but also play them all. So this tip may not make sense at first glance, but hear me out. Yes, you should definitely have a legend that fits you, your playstyle, and that you enjoy playing. Play them when you're going hard and trying to win. But you should also at least have a general idea of how every other legend in the game works. Playing every legend for enough time to really understand their ins and outs will help you when you fight against them. You'll know their strengths to avoid and their weaknesses to exploit, and you'll also have a better understanding of how the player behind them is thinking, and you might even be able to predict for the most part what they may or may not do in a situation. Trust me, this will help you a lot in the long run. Lower your sensitivity. I'm willing to bet that 75% of you watching this are playing on a sensitivity that is way too high, and you probably don't even know it. You want to know what the one thing 99% of pros and top players all have in common? Low sensitivity. That's right. Now, I can't tell you what your magic sensitivity is, but I can tell you how to try and find it. I personally used to play on 1200 DPI with a 3 sensitivity in Apex, and now I play on an 800 DPI with a 1.5 sense, and I can see that my aim has improved, but more than that, my consistency has improved. Now, if you're dropping 20 kills, 4K badges, then skip this tip. I don't need to tell you what to do. I'm talking to the players who are struggling to consistently hit the target most of the time. So firstly, I use mouse and keyboard, but I heard low sensitivity on controller works wonders as well, but I'm going to focus on mouse and keyboard here. I won't be talking about DPI either, since there's a lot of factors and that consider like your mouse and things like that, but your in-game sensitivity, you should be able to do a one full 360 from one side of your mouse pad to the other. If you're doing like 3 or 4 and you don't have a huge long mouse pad, then your sensitivity is definitely way too high. To start, I would take your sensitivity down by 0.2 every game or every other game until you find a good sweet spot where you're getting much more consistent with your shots. This is going to take some time and something you're going to have to do yourself, but it will be worth it, trust me. Also, when ADSing, it's not your exact sensitivity. If you're doing a 360 while aimed in, you'll do a slightly less than 360 than if you were not ADSing. To fix this, just change your ADS sensitivity to 1.3 instead of the current 1.2 it's set at. For this next tip is play numbers, and what I mean by this is if someone is overextended or exposed on the enemy team, you should all try and shoot at that same target whenever possible. This will down them 3 times as fast since there's 3 people shooting at one person, and with this you can easily pick a team apart one by one and wipe them out. This sometimes isn't always an option, but when it is, you should take full advantage of it. Prioritize ammo, heals, and throwables in that order. You should always prioritize ammo and heals over anything else when looting. Throwables are great, but they should never take precedence over your ammo and heals because those are the 2 things that will consistently keep you alive and kill the enemy. If you have space, definitely grab some throwables, but always take ammo and heals first. Shield swapping is one of the best things you can learn to do in this game. You should always shield swap after a fight if possible, even if it's from red to common. That red isn't going to do anything for you if it's empty, but that gray 2 bar could save your life in a third party. After the fight, if it's been a few seconds and you're not getting bum rushed by half the map, then yeah, grab your shield back and charge it up and move on. But shield swapping after a fight, if needed, is definitely something that's going to save you from the cleanup crew. Shield swapping in the middle of a fight also has obvious advantages, just make sure you don't die while in the death box because then it's pointless and it's embarrassing. PC players, stop blaming controllers for everything. Even I'm guilty of this, but I have since moved past it. As a PC player, I do understand it is frustrating to play against aim assist when you don't have any. But that being said, writing off every death to someone on the controller to aim assist is just a bad mindset, and it's honestly not true at all. More than likely, it's your own fault you died. You were probably in a poor position, overextended, or you just got outgunned. Accept that 99.9% of the time when you die, it's from your own fault and not the input choice of the enemy, and honestly, stop blaming your deaths on anything. The hard truth is, when you die, it's usually your own fault. Apex is a fast-paced and a smooth movement shooter. It's easy to get caught up in it all and make a mistake. Overextension or poor positioning are common mistakes and they're easy ones to make. As you play, you'll learn how to position yourself better and make better choices in-game, but you should always pay attention to where you are and where your team is. This is why going back and watching your own gameplay after the fact is very helpful. In the moment, there's so much going on: gunfire, callouts, explosions. It can be overwhelming. Recording yourself takes all that stress and adrenaline away, and you can logically look at what you were doing and decide what you could have, should have, or should not have done. Don't get cocky and keep learning, and that's the final tip here, guys. Don't get cocky. Just because you 1v3'd that squad of Timmies doesn't mean you're going to be able to do it again. Someone who can shoot is no use if they spend most of the game down. Keep a level head and don't get overconfident. Overconfidence always leads to overextension, which will always lead to death. Keep learning, and again, the best way to improve is just to practice. Play every game like you actually want to get better. Pay attention to the map, your team, how the person who killed you played something. If someone really good kills you, watch them. See how they play the game. Watch the pros play. These are great ways to learn outside of playing the game itself. Let me know down below which one of these tips is your favorite and which one you know you need to work on. I hope you all enjoyed and learned something, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Where the fuck do you think you're going? Who are you, dude? You're interfering with important business! Leave me alone. This wraith will die. To me! Hostile eliminated.
Let's go.
That's the Deimos skin that he just doesn't have yet.